Awesome. Okay, welcome, Emily. I'm so excited to have you here. And thank you for joining me on Naughty Bites. And
Hi,
as
it's
you
a
know,
pleasure.
honestly, I'm excited. But as you know, my podcast is called Naughty Bites. What's your guilty, naughty pleasure that you find yourself secretly tucking into?
Oh, that's a good question. First question. Well, for me, it has to be peanut butter on toast. That's
Okay.
that that would be my go-to if I was a little bit hungover, maybe, or just that comfort food. If I'm ever feeling maybe a bit low or a bit tired, toast and peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter.
A crunchy peanut butter.
Yeah, is the
No,
thing. That is my go-to comfort. And I guess it's a little bit naughty because it's peanut butter, but honestly, that I just remember that even eating it that as a child, toast is a bit of a thing as well. I think toast is a wonderful thing that, you know, so many things you can do. This could be all about toast, but literally my go-to comfort, slightly indulgent thing would be peanut butter on toast.
can I be naughty? Can I ask you, do you put jam on it?
No, there's no jam because I don't want the sweetness. I just want the buttery peanut flavors.
I do like, because in our house we have smooth and crunchy, and I love toast and lots of butter and then the peanut butter, and it's
Yeah,
just
no, always butter and peanut butter,
yeah.
absolutely, but no jam.
I
You
just
can't
do
see
that when I'm just being lazy. Okay, so I read that you spent a lot of your time in France, so in Burgundy, Bordeaux, and Provence, and then you're also in Cornwall. Has that French way of life inspired your life in Cornwall and in the way you have your restaurant and the way you cook and the way you live your life?
Yeah, fundamentally, I think my connection with France from such a young age and growing up with my grandfather who was half French and more French than English, to be honest, and they lived in Provence in Bagnols for over 20 years, and we were always there on high days and holidays. Um, so France was a huge influence in just the way of life, the kind of slightly, I guess, slower way of life. I mean, from a child's point of view, it was always fun. And Marnie, and we called my grandfather Papa, were instrumental in us growing up. They were always a part of being around a table. And that's a very French way of life, I think, coming around a table, food and wine. Papa loved food, he loved good wine. And that was always something that was introduced to us from a really early age. So it's always been a thing for me. But actually, as I've got older and had children of my own, you realize the place you come together is round a table. That's, you know, that fundamentally is where you kind of spend time together because you have to eat. And I've always tried to make a thing about coming together. So France definitely runs so strongly through what I think and feel. But Cornwall has that same kind of magic for me as well. So they're kind of interwoven. But everything I do it all means something. It's kind of to do with memories and nostalgia. And I guess I'm someone that considers things a lot. So for me, if things are connected, that means more, which kind of then is more real.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so I think that there comes a lot of emotion and kind of a thought. And France definitely is something that has given me that just because they do food and drink so well. So it's always been there.
Definitely, because it's what you said, connecting. And I've never been to the Southwest until recently, and what I loved the most was just walking along the coastline, and it was that moment to stop and think and just ponder about your thoughts. And it was the whole thing of I've never been there, but it was a connection of like the lifestyle of the where I was, the setting, and just the views, because it's that moment of no hustle and bustle. It's that moment to reconnect your thoughts with everything around you, and it is amazing.
It is. I mean, growing up in France and then finding kind of, I guess my early 20s, I arrived in Cornwall, but it's only kind of in the last 5 years, 6 years that my career has kind of really taken off, meaning I've reached more people, because I've been quietly doing what I do for a long time down here. I mean, I'm 47, so I moved to Cornwall when I was 23. So it's been a long kind of road to actually finding my feet and who I am and how I think and feel. But Cornwall and France have had so much influence on that. And maybe things, do take time, and actually things that take time mean more in the end, if that makes sense. Because for me, I really appreciate where I live, and maybe that's getting older. When you're young, you don't necessarily appreciate nature as much. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but I really do love the connection that the land, the sea, growing, cooking, it's all so interconnected, and I wish my younger self had got more excited about that.
Okay, but I still think it's fascinating because there are people that believe in that and live for that. Do you think, because you said before in your writing that less is more, and I totally agree to that, do you think the French way of cooking and eating has inspired your restaurant and the food that you prepare, as well as Cornwall?
Yeah, no, completely. And less is more, meaning I think thinking about seasonality, provenance, about kind of seeking food from your fishmonger, your grocer, your butcher, your baker, which they do still exist, but because life's got faster and we're so connected to everything, in some ways we kind of want everything instantly rather than making that list and going shopping or finding the joy in those mundane tasks. But when I say less and more, that doesn't mean less butter, less cream, less, I fundamentally, my cooking is all about, flavor. It's about kind of using good ingredients, good olive oil, parmesan, cooking with herbs, lemons. It's taking those simple ingredients, but again, keeping it simple, not messing around too much. But still, I couldn't be without butter. So I've gone back to butter already. But butter, and again, it's everything in moderation. And I'm not saying you've got to eat, things that are full of fat all the time and everything. It's all about moderation, but it's all about kind of, I guess, spending more time thinking about food and how we buy it and how we cook it. And for me, my restaurant is all about simplicity, but we're now doing this lovely set seafood menu, and that's only just been in the last month I've changed to actually, it's not a tasting menu because I want it to feel more relaxed than that, but we cook for you, but we cook for you with what we think is the best on offer at the certain time of year and day. And because I'm at that point in my kind of career where I've got a really good team, I've got a talented team, we can kind of, I feel like we can implement that now. It's not just me trying to do everything anymore. So it's all about simplicity, but with simplicity comes technique and thought. Everything I do takes consideration, and then you've got to kick in that consistency. So my menu is completely inspired by days in France, days in Cornwall, but it's all, for me, I want to inspire people to cook and have a go. It's not about being the most perfect and getting everything right. It's actually just trying something new, maybe.
Definitely. Living here, Spain, a lot of people don't know, but food in Spain is regional. So in the north, it's all about the beef, the dairy butter. By the way, it's the best butter because it's when it melts, it's really thick and luscious and creamy, and it's white. And it's so nice. And it's because the north coast is like Scotland. It's very green and mountainous and valleys and rolling hills. It's a bit like The Hobbit. And then the south, where I live, it's all about the pork and quick food because it's so hot. And when you say that about the seasons and cooking and what's available on offer, like I want to bring you here so you just can eat and we can go like asparagus picking or garlic steaks or whatever. We have to. It's like, I'm just going to make you fat. You're going to eat so much.
You don't have to ask twice. Honestly, that for me, that is all about, again, finding the joy in things one does. You know, we're all busy. We're all trying to earn a living. Life's hard. It's not easy. Let's be honest. But you know, for me, I found so much love and joy, and lucky enough to earn a living. I'm very humble about it. I'm very lucky to be doing this. But then, you know, I've stuck to what I do. I've been true to my ethos, and just quietly got on with it. And there's a lot to be said for that.
No, definitely. So you mentioned seasons that are exciting. What's your favorite season and the produce that comes along with it?
That's really hard, because I just literally, I don't have a favorite season. Each kind of, you know, I love winter. I love those cold grey days where you're kind of layered up and you're walking on the beach, and it's all about one pot suppers and, you know, long Sunday lunches and you know, macaroni cheese, and just hunkering down a little bit. And then just as I'm thinking, oh, this is kind of, we could do with a little bit of sunshine, out comes spring. And you know, I see kind of the seasons in colours, so it's kind of, you know, everything for me. There's a huge amount of colour and emotion, and it's all quite evocative, but honestly, that's how I see it. So I can't say which season I like the best, because they all bring so many different qualities.
Definitely.
So spring, you know, spring is wonderful time, because suddenly you feel a bit more energized and like, oh yes, here we go. The bulbs are coming out in the garden, asparagus, wild garlic, primroses, all those things that just bring colour, and all the greens. And then, you know, May, June, July, you know, and just as I'm thinking, oh, you know, Cornwall's quite busy. It always is very busy in August. It always has been. I mean, Cornwall's a place that's busy all year now, but August is always busy. And just as you're thinking, oh, it's quite busy around here, September comes, and then this wonderful sense of calm, and children are going back to school. The beaches are slightly less crowded, but there's still a buzz to it. And then autumn arrives in a blaze of colours. So, you know, it's kind of just kind of thinking about those things that you see but you don't necessarily acknowledge or let yourself feel. So for me, it's all interconnected, like I say, to cooking, to everything I do.
Oh, so that's so nice. You've made me think about autumn. My favorite season here is autumn, because you get all the mushrooms.
Yeah, nice.
And the mushrooms, and that's when they start picking all the nuts from the trees.
Yeah, I do love it. I mean, I love kind of, you know, stone fruits, kind of high to late summer, and then the blackberries, the elderberries, and then, you know, plums, quinces. I mean, it's all, you know, the squashes. It's all just glorious, isn't it? But
yeah,
I think that's the best way to think and feel about food, because it's like nature saying, this is what we do this time of year. So for me, you won't find strawberries on my menu in June. I'm sorry, you will find strawberries on my menu in June, but you won't find them in December. Or, you know, we really try and think about seasonality.
That's so good, because here I actually do shop at the greengrocers and at the fishmongers, and I love it because, you know, spinach, proper spinach, only comes up twice a year.
Yeah.
And when it does come, I'm literally over abusing it, because I'm like, I'm only going to get it for like a week or two, because the season is so short.
So short.
And I make everything with it. Or garlic scapes only come out once a year, and literally I let them grow, and I grow my own garlic, so then it starts to flower.
That's similar with wild garlic here. You know, when we can make pestos and freeze it. I mean, I'm all, you know, I talk about freezing kind of blackberries if you've triumphantly, you know, picked more than you need, and freezing them so you can have blackberries in December. I mean, that's perfect way of enjoying fruit out of season. But I think it's being mindful about where things have come from. And I am someone that really would hate to see the butchers and the fishmongers disappear, because, you know, so much of some of my cooking earlier, you know, when I was kind of younger, you'd go to the fishmonger and you'd ask them to fillet you've got this recipe, but you're not sure how to do the technical part, and they can do that. So then you can have the fun and the joy of cooking fish maybe that you haven't used before, because they've done the technical bit, because that's what they do. And I think it's remembering, you know, this, rather than having everything so accessible, but that's good as well. So it's a very interesting world we live in now.
Definitely, because I do like that when I do go to the fishmongers, there's certain fish I don't remember or I've never seen before. So I'll always ask, how do you how do you cook this? Because here you have fish for stews, fish for stocks and fumet, and ones for frying or cooking or whatever it is. And a lot of people, it's really curious, because the old women, they go to the fishmongers at 7, and they know what to buy, because they know by 9 o'clock majority of stuff's actually gone, so you get left with the little bits that are left. So for me, it's just interesting.
But that's, you know, our grandmothers are, you know, I was lucky enough to know my great grandmother at one point. You know, these are the people we need to kind of soak up all their information, because you know, there's nothing better than cooking with someone that has done that for you know, for all their life, and just can give so much information. I think it's slightly different now. I think we're all, especially women, have got careers, and we're trying to run a home. You know, I think has that slightly got diluted. That you know, traditionally years ago, women were more in the home and the kind of, you know, providers of kind of the meals at the table. But now, as women, we're having to do so many different things. So, you know, I do try. I mean, I love, you know, I love cooking, and I kind of try and inspire people that maybe find it a chore, that actually you can keep it simple and create really lovely dishes without it taking hours.
Definitely.
But again, we're up against that kind of easy fast food, and there's nothing wrong with that now and again. But for me, fresh ingredients, you know, are really important.
Because, you know, when I go to the north of Spain, it's very much seafood or stews, like hot, because it's cold. And the grandmother, my husband's grandmother, bless her soul, she always tried to teach me making simple food, because they grew up in civil war. They didn't have a lot of things. So she taught me 1,000,001 things to do with potatoes. And I was like, it was interesting. But one of the things that I remember is this dish called patata rebozada, and it's literally potato with corn flour. So you dip it in that, and you do like a little sauce with onions, bay leaf, garlic, and cider, and then it's like apple cider, because apple cider is flat here, but it's so delicious. And then you slowly just cook the potatoes on either side, and it has like a little film coating around it. You take it out and do the next one, and as you keep layering it, the sauce builds, and then you put it back together, and you just drizzle it over.
Amazing.
It's so good. It tastes like it's just 4 ingredients, but it's so amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of the basics: flour, butter, sugar, eggs. You know, I talk a lot. I mean, my children always laugh at me. It's like, here we go, she's going to start talking about eggs. But you know, you don't need a lot to create something
really good. So you're around the southwest coastline. Are there any other coastlines in the UK that appeal to you to go, you know what, I want to see it, or try something from there, or anything like that?
That's an interesting question, because I have been I've been kind of running restaurants since I was kind of 23. So I've spent more time in France and Portugal and Spain than I have going away in the UK, actually. But I'd love to explore more Suffolk and Norfolk.
Okay.
And Kent. I haven't really spent much time there. So really, we really head to kind of Bordeaux region, which is where my partner had a vineyard for 15 years. So he sold that 2 years ago, but we spent a lot of time on that coastline, and that's really beautiful. And again, that's very much kind of, you know, there's a real the Bordelais style is mesmerizing completely. And just, I've got a very good friend, a mutual friend of ours called Philippe, who Mark has got to know him over the years, but Philippe and I have come together for the love of food and wine, and it's wonderful. So I'll meet Philippe early in the markets in Bordeaux, and then, you know, he's passionate about cooking. So for me, I guess I've been pulled back to France more than the UK. But I think probably it would be good to explore more of the UK coast. I'd love to go to Scotland. Never been to Scotland. Ireland, Dublin, I've been kind of a little bit, but again, always been drawn back to France.
Yeah.
And recently been to Italy, and again, I'd only been to Italy once before, and I just love, I love the kind of climate, I guess, and I love the way of life. You know, and I say it's not dissimilar to Cornwall, because there's a saying in Cornwall, like, you know, directly, which basically means, yeah, I'm coming, but in my own time. Like, you know, it's all a bit like, yeah, tomorrow, we'll do that tomorrow. And I guess in Cornwall, I've been in this beautiful county that is always on the back of high days and holidays. So even when friends have come down, they're on holiday, but I'm kind of working. But there's always a sense you're on holiday, even though you're not.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. There's a real nostalgia about Cornwall. So yeah, so I think, just thinking about it, I think I need to explore the UK more, because again, I've always been, I think I'm going to probably, if I don't live in Cornwall, I'll end up living in France at some point in my life again. So, but I will make it. I'm very mindful now that I need to explore the UK more. So that was a good question.
No, I think the UK is really good. Well, while I was down there last week, I think Somerset had a food festival, and I did want to go, but again, time constraints. But it was about the local produce and what they produce, and I was like, oh, that would be really nice. And I think for me as well, because I love UK jam, I think we do it so well that
we do jam well.
And you know, living here, I do miss it. And people want the jam from here because we have green plum and sweet orange and bitter orange. But I miss all the blackberries and
blackcurrant to me. And actually, I've just finished writing my second book, and that's coming out next year in June. But there's a whole chapter on how to, you know, preserving. So I had a lovely time writing that, and just, you know, again, it's that sense of slowing down and making time. Definitely. Making time to preserve things is quite an interesting subject.
Well, you've actually answered one of my second questions a bit later on, but I'll ask it later. You're an advocate for supporting local businesses. What is it that excites you about going to the fishmonger or going to the butchers or to the market? Because for me, I get excited. My husband think I'm a little weird, because I love, you know, when I go to the butchers, I find it quite therapeutic when I see how the butcher cuts the meat, and I find it quite, so I don't know if it's the right word, but sensual and relaxing, because I love food. And it's just, for me, it's very, I can get lost and just spend the whole day there and go, oh wow, like, you know, it's the smells and the way they cut and wrap the meat, like a whole process.
I mean, I completely get that, and you're not weird at all. If you're weird, I'm definitely weird. I love a process. I love a process when it comes to cooking. I love a process, whether you're making bread or you're making pasta, there's a process. And good cookery comes from a process, and with learning a good process, it's about technique, and technique is about learning. And if you do something every day, you get better at it. So for me as a chef, I'm not center and foremost of that at all. For me, I'm lucky enough to have made a business on cooking and food, but for me, it's the people, the farmers, the fishermen, the butchers, you know, the fishermen, all those people that are the ones working hard to bring the produce to us. So if you go to your fishmonger, and you know, they're all so highly skilled, and they know their subject so well. So for me, again, it's that process of what they do that then as a chef, I can kind of create, because every chef, everyone cooks differently. You know, a recipe for creme brulee isn't that dissimilar for someone else's, but we all have our take on recipes. So for me, it's all about those people that bring the produce to me, and they work so hard. I mean, when I moved to Cornwall, I was married to a fisherman, and it was very romantic. You know, I met, and you know, we ended up having this lovely life in Port Isaac. But fishing is hard. It's not, there's no, you know, when you see the boats in the harbour, it is all very romantic with the sea, but it's a hard life, and that's similar to farming, similar to anything that requires, you know, working through the seasons. You know, if you think about growing grapes and having a vineyard, that's a very romantic way of life, the thought of that. But again, that's farming. So anything to do with growing or working within, I guess, the different weathers we have, it's hard. So for me, I have great respect for all these people, and I love nothing more than kind of going to see how, you know, from seeing how clotted cream is made to how you know, just going to the butcher and, you know, our suppliers, and seeing how everything is kind of brought to us as chefs.
No, definitely. As soon as you said clotted cream, I was like, I overindulged. I think I've had a lot of calories. I've put on a lot of calories. I was having a lot of clotted cream.
Very good. But it has to be jam first here.
It has to. I'm the other way.
Yeah, see that does make sense though, because the cream is the butter, which does make sense. But always in Cornwall, it's jam first, and then it's all about that dollop of cream with the crust on the top. Because if you haven't got, like I write in my book, if you haven't got enough cream on the scone and it doesn't hit your nose, you haven't got enough cream on it.
Oh, I like that. No, but what I do, I overly smother my scone with the cream because I love anything dairy. Yeah. I love it, and then I
couldn't give up dairy.
I couldn't. It's so hard.
I don't want to.
Life without dairy is not great.
No, it would be. It wouldn't make me happy. Everything in moderation. That's the key. That's my mantra.
In moderation, but if you've got a couple of days. Yeah, fine. I had a scone a day. It was because I never get to have it, and I've not had it in years. And I love clotted cream, and it was like, well, I'm not going to give up. I'm on holiday. I don't have to exercise, so it was really good. So I'm the new mum, but you're a mum and you're a chef, a restaurateur, an author. How have you? What's your secret? This is a tip for me, but like, what's your secret to have, like, you know, balancing family life, being a mother and being a businesswoman?
Good question. I don't think I've got it right a lot of the time. I think when I was Evie was born on my 30th birthday. So I had 3 children quite close together, which is great now. They're all very close, and it was quite hard when they were little. I always wanted to work, though. I knew that I needed to work for practical reasons, but I also I'm ambitious, and I always knew I wanted to kind of do well at something, and not so everyone goes, oh, you're amazing, but just for myself, I always knew that I wanted to do both. But I definitely didn't get it all right, because I was kind of all or nothing person. So of course I had 3 children quite quickly, and then, oh, let's open a restaurant. I'm always that person that's thinking, oh, let's do this. But that was kind of, so my late 20s, 30s, I think maybe I've definitely become more considered as I've got older, but it's really hard juggling both. But I did juggle both, and I juggled it well. And actually my children, who are now 21, 19 and 17, will all say to me, you know, you've inspired us to kind of work for what we want to work for. I mean, they're still young, but I've given them a sense of, like, nothing just comes to you, you have to work for it. So I've got a very strong work ethic. But I think the key thing for me with your question is that I didn't always get it right, but hindsight's always good for that. But I tried my best, and my children were always, I think, as a mother, as a woman working at a certain level, your children always come first, even before your work, and that's the hard thing. My children were always my priority.
Mm-hmm.
But I managed to just keep going, and I think I'm quite tough in the sense of, you know, if something goes wrong, I think I've kind of always been taught to just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other option really. And my kids would say, they remember, I mean, I cry. I think I'm quite emotional. I get, you know, I think when things are hard, I get upset. More with myself. I'm a kind of a mixture of, I look terribly confident and capable, which I am, but there's another part of me that suffers terribly with imposter syndrome and self-doubt. So when those two clash, that's quite difficult. And those were the moments when I was juggling my young family and working. I was thinking, what, I can't do this. There's a lot of I can't do this, but actually you can do it. And the last 10 years have been incredible, because I guess I found my feet actually probably the last 5 years, but it still comes at a cost, but a personal cost for me, because as a mother, you always feel guilty. Whatever you do, you feel guilty for working, you feel guilty, you know, and I think it's allowing ourselves not to feel guilty. My children have not, you know, they've had a really, I think, they're not here to say otherwise, but, you know, we're very close, and we're you know, I did my best. I certainly didn't get it always right, but you can do it. You can do it if you want to, and I've persevered, and I've failed at many things, but it's sometimes, I think, accepting failure is a good thing. Just saying, actually, with failure opens other doors, and you know, I've always been there for them. But it's been an interesting journey, a lot of hard work.
Definitely. That's what I feel like, because mine's only 18 months. But again, I want to have my children within a close age. And I'm now 36. So I started a lot later. But I think that was the whole thing, like trying to find the balance and the things that I failed at. And I want, you know, my child to grow up, or children, to feel like you can do it. And like you said, nothing comes easy.
I think I want to instill like confidence and happiness within my children, like knowing that they're enough. I think I've suffered terribly from low self-esteem and things like that, which have all driven me to keep to do well. So again, it's almost, there's two, you know, there's this kind of battle that I have, but it's got easier. But it's still, I'm quite happy to say, I really struggle with just feeling in slightly, yes, I guess whatever imposter syndrome is, that sense of like, really, am I doing this? I mean, I sometimes look at my restaurant, the fact my book's been published, you know, for me, those things that I need to celebrate, because I kind of curate all that. I do that. That's my work. So I think human beings are wonderfully resilient, and I think you can do whatever you want to do. You set your mind to. But being a mother, you will always be a mother first and foremost, and that's the hard thing. Even when I was busy with service, really focused, or dealing with anything from kind of managing my team, my kids would always be on my mind. And I think that's different for men in business. I think it's a different sense. You're connected to your children, I think, more as a mother, and that there is that's the hard part. But I still kind of, I stuck with it and come through, and it's, I have my kids are amazing. They're all have worked for me in some part of my business, and I hope I've given them a sense of, you can do anything you want to do, but you need to work for it.
Definitely. I think that's really good, like, mantra sort of like live by.
I think though life is hard. I don't think there's no doubt about it, and I think that's why maybe nature, being connected to the sea, being more connected to what I do is more important than ever to me, because I've suddenly my eyes are wide open to it all. And I think maybe kind of when you start working for yourself, your own business, if I had appreciated that a bit more then, it might have been easier. But I certainly have my eyes wide open now, which is wonderful.
Definitely. Like as soon as I had my little one, I suffered with like really bad anxiety and mental health stuff. And the one thing that got me through was the countryside and the coast, just to stop and help, take in everything, because it was really tough. And I think as well, because I have no one really to talk to here, because I can talk, but like everyone was Spanish. So sometimes I don't want to speak another language. I just want to speak in English to properly communicate how I'm feeling. And it was one of the things that it's one of the things your books does for me. It's the photography. The photography in your book is so thought-provoking, and it's for me, it's like, oh, it's so relaxing, because you've got the food, which is fantastic, but for me it's all about, you've got such natural, captivating imagery that you're like, oh, like it's really, really nice.
It's really evocative. And also for me it's about a sense of place, but it's not just about food, it's about everything. And like I said, I repeat myself probably far too much, but it's about the land, where we are, a sense of who we are as well, and that matters. And I think these days, you talk about mental health issues, anxiety, all those things. When I was growing up, that was never a thing. That literally was never a thing. No one talked about it. And now with social media, there's so much more said about all this. But I think everyone suffers from anxiety at some level. But I definitely, what you say resonates with me, connecting to the countryside and being outside, and just knowing that actually, I think everything will be okay. I'm a great believer everything can be sorted out, and usually it's a conversation or realizing you're not on your own, or other people feel the same. That's hugely important. So again, it's about going back to the table. It's connecting each other. We feel connected with social media, but really we've never been so unconnected, because it's making sure you have those real conversations. And sometimes if you're seen to doing well, people might judge you and say, well, it's okay for you, but you don't have a bad day. I have lots of bad days, but I also have lots of really good days. But isn't that just life? That's and it's about choices. It's about who you choose to spend time with. I'm spending more time on my own, in the sense of actually saying, I'm going to do this for myself, or I'm going to go for a walk on my own, which is a new thing, because a lot of the time I remember being in kind of younger, like meaning late 20s, 30s, I always needed to be surrounded by people. But actually there's something so wonderful about first thing in the morning when no one's awake, those pockets of time that you can find for yourself. So I'm sure we could talk about that for hours.
Definitely, because I think that's another conversation we can have. But no, I feel the same. You always need that time to reconnect with yourself. And it's that time I actually switch off my mobile, because for me, because of my work, I'm always on my phone or on my laptop. On weekends, I shut down. I leave my phone at home, because I just don't want to see it. And everything's on do not disturb. So it's the best thing.
Good.
It's the best
it's
thing.
Kind of being connected, but knowing when to have some quiet time.
Definitely. So I know that last year you cooked at the G7 summit, and your menu was just amazing. What emotions were running through your head when you were your mind when you were preparing this menu? Like what did you want to?
That last year, it's funny, because last year was so ridiculous, and this sums me up. Going back to what I was saying about, I always have to do kind of, I'm not just like, let's do this. No, let's do everything. And last year, it just happened that everything came at once. So I opened my new restaurant by the sea on May the 18th. I cooked, and my first book was published on June the 10th, and I cooked for the leaders of the world on the Friday, and I moved house. That was all within a month.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It was nuts. But going the G7 job was, honestly, I've got used to it, and I think, oh, it was just, I just cooked for people like we cook for anyone. But when they approached me and they said, you're on a long list and now you're on the short list, and then when it got to 2 people, me and someone else, I thought, oh, okay, I'm quite competitive now. And having been given the brief for the dinner at the Eden Project was, they want a relaxed feel for the leaders. They don't want a kind of a government style dinner. They want it to feel relaxed, and I wasn't just doing the menu. I was given responsibility for laying the table, choosing the flowers, every aspect of it. So for me, that's a dream job, because again, it's not just about food for me. It's about thinking about what glasses you're going to have, about what napkins you're going to have, how the flowers are going to make you feel. It's about how you feel, not just there's just so much consideration and thought again about that detail, but keeping it like I would at home. So, when we had a meeting with the Foreign Office, I said I was going to use tea towels as napkins. They were like, you could just see, you kind of just went a bit white, as if to say, oh my gosh, what's she going to do? But anyway, when it got down to 2, and then I remember the day the Cabinet Office rang me and said, you've got the job. And I was just like, oh my goodness, that's, and it wasn't just for the leaders, because there was a canapé reception for the Queen and Prince William and Kate and Prince Charles and Camilla. So you don't see all those people. I'm never going to be in a space with all those people again. Especially the way politics has also changed. But I'm not going to talk politics. But if we just keep it to the fact that it was the leaders of the Western world, and then my menu, I wanted them to have the melon gazpacho, because I thought it was a little bit different. And for me, going back to simplicity, the turbot cooked on the bone with a butter sauce, again, if we carry on talking about butter, and then pavlova, that's very English. So it all, and then I did little ice creams for canapes. So thinking about being in Cornwall and what you'd have if you went to the beach, clotted cream ice cream with a flake. We did little shards of chocolate. So, and then Cornish fudge that we made, everything had a connection back to where we were. But laying the table, being able to choose like all the glassware, and I chose vintage cutlery. So it was exactly, I have a very specific style, and it was beautiful. It worked beautifully. But I was told at one point, they might leave early, they might not eat everything, and then they might not be relaxed, because obviously it was they're all working, and it's all high kind of, I guess it's quite stressful potentially, but they stayed late, they ate everything, and they were really relaxed, to the point where I was asked up by the Prime Minister at the end of the dinner to say hello to everyone, and President Macron's wife basically had a copy of my book, and she was the instigator of them all signing it. And then, I kind of look up, and Joe Biden's coming towards me to say thank you. And that was an incredible moment. Honestly, I was just like, this is like really, I've, as I've talked about, not everything's always gone right. And it's been, hospitality is hard. They're long hours. It's quite stressful. It's a competitive industry to work and breathe in. And there was me standing with the world leaders and their wives all around me. Wow. And that has to be quite life affirming, but also for my team, because nothing I do on my own. And that's very important. You're only as good as the people around you. And, it was incredible. And my eldest son served the world leaders, as did my partner's daughter, Rosie. So all our children, Finn was in the kitchen cooking. Evie, my daughter, was serving at the table with the canapes to the Queen. And then Alex, Mark's son, we had another reception for kind of dignitaries, so very well-known people in business. So it was incredible. It's incredible. Wow. But the night before, so I was like, you know, just kind of talking about just having a moment of thinking, I can't do this. You know, I said to Mark, what am I doing? This is no way am I going to pull this off. Mm-hmm. And there was never any doubt we'd pull it off. But it was, you know, it was a ridiculously amazing thing for me to be able to do.
Oh, definitely. But I was just like, we need to have another conversation, because I literally just like
this. I mean, Joe Biden was charming, and a moment I'll never forget was looking out at the garden and seeing all the leaders standing there, and then the Queen arriving with Prince Charles and then Prince William, and then you could hear Biden's cars arrive, and then next minute Joe Biden and the First Lady arrive, and you're just kind of doing that with your eyes, going, oh my goodness, taking photographs, like, because obviously we couldn't have phones, and thinking, this doesn't get bigger. And the fact, you know, with the security, you know, I think there were 500 people surrounding us. So there was, Adrian, he was in charge of the whole operation. He was amazing. He was like, Emily, you're probably never going to have so much security while you're cooking ever again. And to work with the Secret Service, that was incredible. And there was one point where I was at a meeting prior to the event, and I was standing in a circle with the Secret Service and the Cabinet Office, and they were all looking to me to say, how do you want this to run? And I mean that's incredible. And I you know, I'm not someone that I question everything, and I did enjoy it, but my goodness, I would have never said no. And I think that's again where I'm a bit of a mixture, because I'm terribly kind of, there's a very kind of worried, anxious, like, I can't do this, I'm not good enough side to me, and then there's another side to me that's like, you've got this is incredible, yes, say yes to everything. And for me, life's all about opportunity, and what an opportunity.
Well, again, it's a process, and you went through all the processes, and wow, and you came to the other side, and
and I think the Cabinet Office said that I was the first woman to cook for the leaders of the Western world. So
wow,
that's good. I didn't get a badge or anything, but you know. But Joe Biden wrote a wonderful thing in my book, and he was charming, and we chatted for about 15 minutes. You know, there was no question that he, you know, and I know that they're all, you know, part of their job is to talk to people, but they didn't need to give us that much time. So I did my job. They were relaxed and they were happy and they loved the food.
And they ate all your food. Yeah. And that's even better.
President Biden has a sweet tooth, because he particularly liked the ice cream little canapes at the end, petit fours.
Oh, I love stuff like that. Yeah. So you spend. So Stanley Tucci is a massive fan of yours. Has he ever cooked food for you? Because he's always posting about how amazing your food is, and he loves to go there. But have you spent time cooking together, or him cooking for you?
I'm so lucky that kind of Stanley has kind of come into our lives in quite a natural way. And obviously we've been brought together for the love of food and wine, and a table, like I've spoken about. We haven't cooked together yet. That's all I'm going to say. But who knows what will happen. But, you know, I've met a lot of really nice people in the last kind of year, and Stanley is one of the nicest, most genuine people I've ever met. So I just feel incredibly lucky to know him and his wife Felicity.
Because I think it's really nice, because he's reconnecting with his Italian roots, and the stories that come off, it's a lot of nostalgia, and I'm actually looking forward to one day trying his food. But he's a major foodie, which is what I really like about him.
And he's just honestly such a lovely man. So very lucky to even, you know, have an opportunity to kind of, you know, sit and chat with him, and, you know, such a wonderful thing to be able to have him at my restaurant, and he was at my book launch for my first book, and you know, it's it's just, again, all about the love of good food and wine that bring people together.
It literally does.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my next question. Your personality resonates a strong sense of connecting with the land and the food. How did your childhood play a part in that?
I think food was always a thing for us growing up, and my mother is very strong, very very maternal. It was always about bringing us together around a table, and I think that was from her parents as well, like I spoke about at the beginning. So again, connecting as a family always happens around a table, and my mother always, you know, I have wonderful memories of cooking with her, but also she entertained a lot back in the kind of 80s, 90s, the dinner party, which I think needs to have a bit of a revival, or the drinks party that was always a thing. They always socialized, they always entertained. So I think there was always connection. It was food, people, and there was always a sense of fun growing up. So that was interesting. So I think it's just, you know, a sense of being looked after, because I know if my children come back from university, I'd always think, what can I cook them that really is comforting and reminds them of home, you know, that kind of thing. So I think that has always been a very strong thing throughout my life.
Wow. Because I think, like you said, food and people has always been a thing in many cultures as well, you know, because so growing up in a South Asian household, and in the early days, it was weekend, someone would always be at your house, or you'll go see your relative, and it'd be like everyone, food on the floor, like you'd have all these pots of, like, you know, seafood and seaweed and meat and then chicken and then vegetables. It was like a never-ending supply of food, but you're all sat together talking and sharing, you know, things about your day, or what things you're going through, or things you want to do. And that's what I really like, because it was connecting with the people around you as well as the food you're sharing. And for me, like, a lot of your dishes are memories as well. What's your favorite dish and the connection it has for you?
So for me, again, talking about favorite things, I don't think it's a dish. I think it's ingredients more than a dish. So again, thinking about where you are and what you're eating is always something, or the smells, it's all the senses. And when I grew up in Bagnolo, we spent so much time there, it was more about kind of the honey at breakfast, or jam on toast for breakfast, or the white peaches. So a white peach that Marnie would peel, skin on, and she would cut and so she didn't peel it, skin on, but cut it into kind of pieces for breakfast. And I can still remember the kind of warmth of the sun, the smell of lavender and rosemary and thyme, and the sound of the crickets. And so for me, thinking about that white peach, it's not just about the peach, it kind of, there's a whole kind of story of senses. And like in Cornwall, kind of a crab sandwich in the harbour in Port Isaac was always a thing, with, you know, and there's something, obviously eating a crab sandwich looking out to sea is far more delicious than not doing that. But for me, it's certain times and places. It's like growing up, tomatoes in the greenhouse. That's, you know, I'm picking little cherry tomatoes or cucumbers from the greenhouse. And my parents had someone that helped with the garden back then, and I remember just kind of always being interested in growing and smelling and eating and tasting and all those kind of things. But it smells that I think are most evocative for me. So it wouldn't be a certain dish, I don't think. Although if you really push me, it would probably be something like, I don't know, I love pasta. I couldn't give up pasta. But I think really it's more of an ingredient associated with the place.
Definitely, because they say that when I do a bit of research in my writing, they say that psychology has a major influence on your food and your senses. And they say, and I truly believe it, if you're having seafood, they play, you could be playing like crashing waves like in the background, and you'd be sat outside, and it heightens your senses, and it gives you a more pleasurable sensation.
And it gives you a visual as well. I think is I think like having a glass of wine looking out to sea is when you think about going on holiday, I see a lot at the moment on Instagram, people enjoying a glass looking out to sea or a sunset. So it's all about moments in time and high days, isn't it? But then I'm trying and be mindful about what I cook in just those days where today it's work. Try and find the joy in each day rather than making that separation between holidays and work days, because I love work. I'm a bit weird. I really love what I do. So coming to my restaurant, I'm literally sitting here and I can see the Atlantic Ocean. It's just like my view is the sea. So I do appreciate that. I'm very lucky.
Definitely. And talking about food and drink, you collaborated with the Harbour Brewing Company, and you made, I think it was the ale actually named after your dog, Monty. Did your ale have any sort of herbs or spices in it when you were creating it?
Yeah, so that collaboration happened when I had my pub, which I don't have anymore. But Monty, he was a gorgeous Labrador that we had, and sadly he had bad hips and we had to put him down. So it was really sad because he was just like such a good dog. And I decided to create a beer in his memory, and it was really cool. And basically, the Harbour Brewing Company created something that I just said I wanted something quite feminine, quite citrusy to kind of. So there was some thought that went into that, but also it's quite drinkable. When I had the pub, I kind of for 8 years, and the pub was the hardest thing I ever did because you were trying to please such a big group of people. And the drinking side was quite a big thing for the locals. Again, talking about food and bringing people together. Yeah. A pub, you have to always have the respect that it is a place where people come together. Some people come together to see friends. Some people come on their own. It's you see everyone's lives in the same place day after day. So when I created this beer, I wanted it to be something that connected everyone to Monty and remembering him, but also something that wasn't too heavy, something quite fun. So again, there's so much to create, and it's not just all about food. Drink is incredibly exciting too. Yeah,
definitely. And my last question: you did mention your second book.
Yeah,
I can't wait. Is it going to be similar to the first one, or will you be elaborating on more?
So it's very different, and it's elegant. Sea and Shore is beautiful. Sea and Shore will always be the most wonderful thing I've done. But for me, Sea and Shore is of more like, hi, I'm Emily. And this is my Cornwall, and this is what I think and feel. But my new book is, I'm so happy to return, to be back with you. But this is a real insight into me as a person. It's much more personal, and it's elegant, it's beautiful, and it's a little bit more confident, probably.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
It's really cool.
Because it's the things that you write about is what I resonate with a lot. So for me, when I read cookbooks or have cookbooks, it's ones where I love books and love smelling the pages. So when I had the Kindle, I was like, no, this is not going to work for me. So I had to have the whole book. Yeah. And actually, thankfully, it arrives on Tuesday because I feel a bit sad not being back in the UK. It's a bit of a nostalgia for me.
Yeah.
But I can't wait because it was so beautiful. Like a little feminine, really crisp, and it was just.
It's interesting because I never knew I could write, meaning I never knew I had the words to put onto paper. And I know I have a certain style of writing, but honestly, I kind of write what I see, think, and feel. And sometimes I worry, even when I speak to you, I think, am I making sense? Because I sometimes feel everything just kind of comes out of my mouth or onto paper like a bit,
but
not
I understand
necessarily confusing, like, but you know, I can write, and it's one of the best things ever, and I'm so lucky to have an opportunity to have my books published. I mean, that's, you know, and I work quite hard to, you know, it kind of took 10 years of like, I want to write a cookbook. And it took that long, and I got rejected by different publishing houses, and it's quite hard. But what I'd say to anyone is just keep going, because your synopsis, your idea will land on someone's desk that will love it, and they'll be looking for you. And I was lucky enough for it to arrive on my publisher's desk, Kajal, at the right time, and she has been instrumental in. She just can see what I was trying to do, and she could see my vision, and just has been the most amazing person. And writing books is so collective, because you have then such a team of people that bring your vision, it's basically my life, because, you know, it is what's going to, I mean, what's in Sea and Shore is, but that's more of a backstory of how I got to be here, whereas this is like more here and now.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's so collective though, from, you know, from the photographer to the whole team. So it's such a joy, and something that makes me so happy.
It does, because your writing is your style, and your personality comes through your writing. And it was, for me, something that I connected with, because as you wrote, so as I was reading your writing, you can imagine, you can like envisage it. So for me, it's so good to have that, because, you know, I have lots of books, but sometimes I'm just like, oh, okay, some books make me fall asleep, but some books just really, I just can't stop. But, you know, it's quite addictive. And that was
it'll be interesting how, you know, because as an author you worry about, you know, because you kind of let the words go, and then you think, oh, what if people don't like it? But actually, I'm trying to learn that it won't be for everyone. It'll be really interesting, the reaction to the new book, because I think it's more relaxed, and it's far more of me. I step forward, and Cornwall is there, but Cornwall stepped back a bit, because Sea and Shore was, you know, that's Cornwall, and then I'm there. But this one's more about me and what I'm doing and what I think and feel. And Cornwall is the most beautiful backdrop. But it'll be really interesting. So we've got to wait, because it isn't published till June 23. But that's 2 years basically since the first one came out, which I think is a really nice time, because it was much harder writing this one, because when I wrote Sea and Shore, it was in lockdown. So I had a lot of time, but this one I was juggling a lot of things, and because I'm saying yes to more and more things, it got to a point where I think my family almost disowned me, because I was like, I've got so much to do, you know. There were moments of like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can get all the words, test all the recipes, make it all come together. But I'm getting my edits back today actually. So, but it, you know. The process, let's talk about process again, is just the most unbelievably wonderful process, because you end up with something forever.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's yours, it's in print, and it's yours. And
I'm very lucky.
I'm so excited to see it. So Emily,
it's
been an absolute pleasure. I could talk to you for days. It's just so wonderful. It's just so wonderful to learn so much about you. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.